How do swimmers effectively create propulsion with the lower body? Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. And today we're going to talk about the breaststroke kick and what swimmers need to do in order to execute a great one. We're going to keep it simple and rather focusing on the specifics of what each swimmer has to do in terms of achieving a perfect model. We're going to talk about the basic principles so that swimmers can adapt the most effective kick to their body, their strengths, their limitations, because ultimately they're all different. They've got different levels of strength. They've got different levels of mobility. They've got different bone lengths. They've got different joint configurations. They've got all sorts of different things that we can never really fully appreciate. So it's going to be really difficult to determine what's the perfect kick. So instead, we got to focus on the principles, making sure that they execute those well. What are those principles? They've got to be able to create a big surface area with as much of the leg as possible. They've got to kick straight back so that they can move forward. And then lastly, they need to try to accelerate the kick as they move through. Let's dive in and see what it looks like in action. So the first thing we're going to pay attention to is creating a big surface area. So the way to do that is basically the feet need to turn out and the feet need to be wider than the knees. That's going to create a sideways surface area that can be used to move water backwards. If the feet stay within the knees, it's pretty much impossible for them to turn out. And if they can't turn out, now we don't have a surface area to push with and to kick with. And so a lot of times there's discussion in terms of how wide the kick should be. And from my perspective, we can't really know the exact anatomy of the hips and the knees. So it's tough to know how wide some swimmers should kick. But what definitely does need to happen is the feet need to get wider than the knees. And if so, someone's going to have a really wide kick, they just need to have really wide feet as well. And if they have a narrow kick, they still need to have the feet outside the knees. So we'll take a look at it, see what happens here. So you can see as she sets up, you can see the feet are outside the knees. And that allows her to create a surface area with the feet, turn them out, put them backwards, and then kind of push straight back. And that's the kicking action. And so the big surface area is going to come from especially the foot and then also the shin. The wider the shin can be, the further outside of the knee it can be, that's going to be a surface area as well. It might not be quite as effective as the foot, but it does have an impact. And if swimmers can leverage it, they want to do that. So again, you can see that surface area of the feet are wider than the knees, and that's going to create a nice platform to kick off of. We see that with this swimmer here, and again, right there, that foot turns out, the feet are wider than the knees, and then kicking straight back. And so you can see here, especially the underside of the foot right there is a big surface area that's moving water backwards, and that's where the effectiveness of the kick comes from. And so again, turn the feet out, get them pointed out, and then kicking straight back. So the big surface area comes from the feet turning out, the shins pointing out, and that creates a big paddle that they can use to kick with. So if we watch these swimmers here, we'll see the same thing. And what you'll see is that both of these swimmers, you can see the swimmer on the right there, you can see the feet outside the profile of the knees, and then on the left, the feet outside the profile of the knees. And what you can notice here is this swimmer on the left, they seem to get their feet out wider and their knees a little bit wider than the swimmer on the right. So they're both satisfying the same principles, but they're using a slightly different strategy. The swimmer on the left has a little bit wider kick, but still feet are outside the knees. And then the swimmer on the right has a little bit narrower kick and a little bit faster kick. But again, the feet are still outside the knees. So they're creating that surface area. They're just doing it in a slightly different way. So the next key skill we want to talk about is kicking straight back. And so there used to be the concept of up, out, and around, where the swimmers are really trying to kick around. That thought process definitely kind of receded, and it's much more of a direct kick backwards. The intent to kick is to kick straight backwards. Now, obviously, the feet aren't going to move directly backwards, especially because they're outside wide and they need to come together. And so they're going to come together, but there's not a specific intention to try to make that happen. There's not this sweeping action. It's more of a direct back kick. And because the feet have been turned out, they're necessarily going to come back into the middle. They're not going to go straight back. However, the intention is to go straight back. And just because of the way the joint's shaped, it's going to come back into the middle. But that's not what swimmers are trying to do. So if we watch here, she turns her feet out and then basically kicks straight back. You can see the feet are moving right back in. And they're not trying to, she's not sliding them out. She's not trying to kick around. She's just kicking back. And as the knees come back together, so too do the feet. So really the feet are following the knees, and the knees are just going to come together because they extend. And so again, it's just turning it out right here and then just kind of kicking straight back. And again, it's not going to be a perfectly straight line, and it's not going to be really a straight line at all, but the intention is just to kick back. Because of the structures of the joints, there's going to be a curvilinear action. It's going to curve a little bit, but the intention is to kick back. And so if she was using the strategy of kicking around, what would happen here is that you'd see the knees slide out and around, but they don't. They just come right back into the middle. It's directly backwards. And so it's a very direct kicking action. So we'll watch it again here with these two swimmers. And so again, they turn the feet out and then they kick them back. The knees don't move during that kick. They may move in, but they certainly don't move out. There's no around action. It's just a straight back kicking action, and that's going to move swimmers forward. The more they can kick water backwards, the more they're going to move forward. And again, there will be some curve to the kick, but that's not the intention, and swimmers shouldn't be trying to do that. They're just trying to kick straight back, and when they can do that effectively, that's going to move them forward. So a really good example of this, Adam Peaty, you can see there's very little waste of that kick. He's just kicking straight back. He's setting it up wide, just like we talked about earlier, and he's just going straight back. There's no around. There's not much of anything other than just kicking straight back. And so it's a very direct action, and the more direct it can be, one, it's going to be more effective because all of the energy is going to be moving the swimmer forward, but two, it's going to be faster. And the faster the kick can go, the faster the arms can go, the faster the overall stroke rate can go, and if it can be done without losing any of the effectiveness of the kick, they're not going to lose any stroke length, so they're just going to swim faster. So again, very direct kicking actions are going to be really effective at helping swimmers move quickly through the water. Set it up, and then kick it straight back. So the last thing we're looking at is an acceleration of the foot through the kick. So there's a patient setup, and then there's a build throughout that kick. The foot speed's going to accelerate as they go, and that's going to allow them to create more and more propulsion. So we'll watch here in relatively slow motion. You can see the kick pick up the speed at the end, and that's what they're doing. So they're setting it up, being a little bit patient, and then boom, accelerating through the back of the kick. So watch a little bit faster. You can see, accelerate the foot speed through, sets the kick up, and then boom, accelerates the kick, accelerates the kick. And so if swimmers are passive with it, they're not going to be able to maintain pressure on the water, and they're not going to get nearly as much out of the kick. So even if they execute a technically perfect kick, if there's no acceleration, there's no push behind it, they're not going to get much out of the kick, and that means they're not going to swim particularly fast. So these two swimmers again, and you can see the setup, and then boom, accelerate the kick, especially through the middle portion of the kick, as there's a real acceleration to pick the foot speed up, and that's going to surge the swimmer forward as they go through. Right there, there's the acceleration, and you can see the snap through with each kick. This is particularly evident with this swimmer. You can see sets it up, patience, and then boom, and really accelerates the kick and blasts it straight back and really gets the foot speed up. And so that's really what swimmers need to accomplish, is setting it up, kicking back, and then really accelerating the feet to get as much propulsion as they can out of each kick. So ultimately, the breaststroke kick is not super complicated. Swimmers need to be able to turn their feet out, get their feet wider than their knees, and then just blast that kick back, straight back, accelerating as they go. And so the more range of motion they have through the legs, the more options they're going to have in terms of where they can position the legs. If they're really limited in their range of motion, it's going to be more difficult to really get a great surface area. So it's important to have the physical requirements to kick effectively. And it's not just range of motion. Swimmers need the strength to kick in those positions. And the stronger they are, the more they're going to be able to accelerate the water. So set up the kick effectively by turning the feet out, getting the feet wide. The knees might not be quite as important, provided that they're inside the feet. Kick straight back and accelerate that kick straight back. And if swimmers can do that, they're going to be able to execute an effective breaststroke kick. And if they can execute an effective breaststroke kick, they're going to swim faster. Hope that was helpful. As always, keep it simple.